Oh, here. So, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Took a screenshot right here, and this is my answer on how to answer that question. My answer to how to answer that question? It's so awkward. Anyways, grab your tea and sip with me. Good stuff. All right. So, some of you might have encountered that question of, people ask you, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And you're thinking to yourself, do I really have to answer what are my weaknesses? I mean, that's kind of like devaluing yourself a bit. So I tried the strategy of how to answer these questions, and I thought this one would be, the sort of answers would be kind of legitimate of how to kind of avoid that pitfall of like almost devaluing yourself, but also showing some value that you are compatible to work with the team. You have the values and, let's just get right to it. So when people ask you, what are your strengths and weaknesses? I guess the way I answer it is first, I start with the strengths. Obviously, first, you want to have the attention getter of why you fit with the team or the company you work with. So you start with the strengths that align with the job values. Usually you can find these job values in, let's just say you're on LinkedIn, you can find it in the LinkedIn description of the job. Sometimes they might say like, we want a hard worker, enthusiastic, who explores technology. So right there for that instance, someone who has high energy, who is willing to explore new technology or has that curiosity or proactive on searching that sort of technology and stuff like that, And then you just have to state those strengths. And of course, you have to be kind of legitimate with that answer. You can't just kind of make it up. And if you're good at making it up, eventually in several rounds later, they might sense that sort of energy, And plus, when you say it more genuinely, it naturally comes out more authentically. Unless you're a really good actor, then I guess you'll pass that through. So again, start with your strengths that align with the job values. If you can't find those values in the job description, maybe you can go to the company page and find their core values there, and you could try that one as well. But first start out with the job, then you can go expand to the company values if you can't find it. And of course, every time you don't want to list them all out right away. Usually, I just state one or two strengths because the interviewer expects a short answer. So when I give examples with one or two, first when you start with one, I say that strength, give an example, a story, how I applied it and how it benefited the company or my teammates that I work with. Then I state the second one and give examples about that too. Usually, I want to have at least one of those strengths that are not appearing in the job description or uniqueness, because the company also wants to know that although you can fit right in, can you add something new to the company? And you want to make sure that extra value, like let's just say they talk about curiosity and high energy. Perhaps you want to also include maybe you have great documentation skills. You're very organized. But in a more flourishing word, organized sounds kind of dull or bland. How about systematic? Ooh, maybe that might be a little bit better. So you use some sort of good word that sticks in your mind. So when people check out all their interviewees and look at their answers of which can stick out to them about what values they all exist. First you check if the values of the candidate aligns with the company, and also they have anything to add on. And systematic sounds a little bit more spicier than organized, Well, maybe there's a better word than both of them, but I'm sure you guys are more creative than I as an engineer. At least, and yeah, I already stated that one. Now, to answer that, stating your weaknesses. I usually don't want to give too much energy to that question, actually, but I still want to state at least 1 to 2 weaknesses. But right away, I don't want to go tell a story about how I'm weak on these certain points in my job. I actually want to follow up with how I work around it. And usually you want to give more energy to you want to give a sort of momentum or direction that you are always progressing, you're always advancing, you're always upscaling your skills. And the people will see okay, he's not going to just be a stationary kind of worker in our company, but even though he has these weaknesses, and it makes it more like credible that you have weaknesses. But he knows how to deal with his weaknesses, and we know that he can get around it and he could be even better in our company like that. Like, yeah, he doesn't believe that he can be stopped by any problem. So you want to follow, once you say you're one or two weaknesses, I try to avoid giving examples like, okay, I have high anxiety. One time there's this demo, and I was supposed to give a demo about something, and I just froze. You don't want to give an example like that. Instead, you want to give examples of like how you worked around it. Like, let's just say I have high anxiety, but usually I find strategies where I work with my manager or teammates. I practice with them. I make sure that my points align with theirs, and I get my confidence by their confidence as well. And it also shows that you're cooperating with your team, stuff like that. I think it's going on to my bullet point right here. Make sure that when you follow up with how you fix your weaknesses or work around them, you want to mention like perhaps you collaborate or did some teamwork stuff with your manager or your teammates. And you want to take risks too. Like, let's just say you're not good in public speaking, you're not good in making demos. You still want to, even though you have the weaknesses, you can say that you want to at least show that you're not going to shy away from any challenge. Many companies like people who take challenges reasonably, and so you could say like I'm scared of publicly doing demos, but so instead of demoing to in front of the whole company, I practice demoing just to my own little team first, even though it's scary. I know that I have to. This is a stepping stone if I want to give some value to the company, stuff like that. So I hope that makes sense. So in summary, you start with your strengths and you give examples for each of them, one or two. One of them has to be, well, at least one of them has to align with the job values, or if you can't find it, the company values. And one of them has to be something that is unique, that is not apparent in that job description or the company values, but can be a cultural add to the company. You want to state one or two weaknesses, and but when you state them, you want to right away follow up with how you are working around them. Usually, it's best if you include answers that involve how you collab with your manager or team with it, and showing that you want to fix this weakness by taking risks that are adverse to what your weaknesses are. Hope this helps, and I wish you well in your interviews. See ya.